Hello everybody! In today's video I'm going to show you how anybody can look online and look at real estate in Nicaragua without having to deal with all of the overhyped bullcrap that you'll experience when you're typically looking at investment opportunities and real estate in Nicaragua. I'm talking about San Juan del Sur luxury villas and any kind of property worth more than $200,000. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how do you find houses and farms that people actually buy, locals buy. How do they find them? They use websites like this. But let me give you my always disclaimer. You're always going to be better off walking the streets, taking numbers, calling people, and visiting in person. Also, disclaimer number 2, don't buy stuff unless you've been to the country and spent some time here. Just in general, unless you've been somewhere very similar, you really know what to expect. Don't start your experience in Nicaragua with a purchase. Go spend time here, visit some neighborhoods, get a feel for it. I strongly encourage you, okay? That being said, let's check out some stuff online. I like to use this website. It's called Mamatombo Real Estate. It's one of the local real estate people. I like them because they're more straight up than other places. Like other real estate websites will, they'll use the photos from 5 years ago before the roof caved in and, that kind of thing. They'll say it's really good farmland when maybe it's been used for 70, 80 years in a row and the previous farmers left because it doesn't grow anything anymore. These kind of things happen all the time, and you really have to look at a lot of different stuff. Here, you can't just look at one thing and be like, that's the property for me. You gotta visit a bunch of different places. And then you can find something that not only blows your mind, but you can tell it's the situation of the seller makes sense. You don't want to get bait and switched into anything. You really want to take your time, figure out who the seller is, why are they selling, what's going on here, and give it time to really see. Because if someone's trying to fuck you over and you give them time, they're going to bounce. They're going to go try and fuck someone else over. So when you find something that you really like, just give it time, okay? That being said, let's get into it. To start, let's change it to English for you guys. You can go to the top right of the website and then just click Spanish or English. We'll search in English, okay? And then let's start by looking at some farms that are for sale, just to give you guys a sense of how much property is around for between $50,000 and $200,000. You can see these are all the farms for sale. That guy's selling some fish. His fish are way cheaper than these farms, though. The price is going to vary a lot because it's not by acreage necessarily, because you have acreage of jungle, you have acreage of abandoned useless cliffs, you have acreage of already producing farms. So there's a huge variance, but I'll give you some general number summary here. Roughly, you can acquire land here for $3,000 to $15,000 per manzana. A manzana is bigger than an acre. An acre is 1.7 acres is around one manzana in Nicaragua. Okay? Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I understand it to be. So, in general, the cost of land will be between $3,000 and $15,000 per manzana. $3,000 is really land that either it has no development, no farm, no fruit production, no production of any kind, or land that is productive but is so far away from everything else, it's hours and hours and hours away from useful areas, like cities and that kind of thing. That'll lower the value of the land a lot. So it's not as simple as paying this much gets this. It's more there's a lot of factors, and it has a lot to do with the seller themselves and what their circumstance is. So really what you want is, can I find a local Nicaraguan person who actually owns the land that they're trying to sell? It's not like some distant relative or something. And when they sell it, it's going to be at a profit to them and a good thing for them. That's really what you want, because when you buy land this way, you're going to have less problems. When you just fall for things, you buy fast, you're going to get abused, you're going to get sold some piece of crap or some tiny little lot somewhere that, you know, like someone local could actually get like for free from certain programs in their government or heavily subsidized, but like they'll sell to foreigners for like way more than they're worth. That kind of thing can happen, right? So you really should take your time. I'm going to say this over and over and over again, because there's no point in me spending time in this video going through this website too much, because I showed you it. You know where it is. I've given you the general gist of it. But if you're looking at land, I want to make sure that if you end up buying something, you're actually a person who's going to stick with it and not regret it. I don't want you to do something you're going to regret. So really take your time, because I know it can be exciting if you're used to, you know, the US or something. Like, let's take an average option here, like, right? These are 85, 97, 200, 140. Let's look at this one. All right, so for $140,000, you can get 11 acres and 40,000 planted coffee plants, and a house that's a 2-bedroom house with water and electricity for $140,000. I mean, come on. This kind of shit is like, you can't find that in most of these developed countries. And you really got to ask yourself, like, what do you want? Do you want to live, especially if you earn money online, do you want to live a life where, like, you have to work all the time to be able to afford $1 million house, when you really can just go live somewhere without a winter? And, you know, you don't even, like, you can afford $140,000 if you have half decent credit and you have a $10 an hour job in Nicaragua. You could actually afford the loan and shit for this kind of property. You don't need huge amounts of education. You don't need a whole life of you having thought about your retirement and, you know, contributed to your savings and crap. You can have a lot more tolerance for the realities of life, because things are a lot cheaper here in Nicaragua relative to other places. Because, like, at least where I'm from in the US, there is absolutely nowhere that you can get a house in any condition, even in deteriorated condition, on 11 acres of land with coffee farms and other things for that much money. That's not like, this is how much it cost for the smallest apartment in the most dangerous neighborhood I lived in the US. It's so nuts what that much money can get you here. And believe it or not, this isn't like a one-time thing. You can regularly find stuff like this. And there's loads of land that's available. I just really encourage you to try and use websites like this and walk around, talk to people, try and find locals yourself that have stuff you're interested in, instead of like watch. If I go to Google and I'm like, Nicaragua buy house, right? Let's see, what's the first kind of thing that comes up? Remax. I think this is actually... Isn't Remax a US company? I mean, this isn't actually, like, so this is the kind of stuff you tend to see more of. And if you look at the internet normally, then these kind of ocean view luxury things seem a lot more normal. Like, see this kind of stuff. And there's very much this image of, oh, you've worked your whole life. It's time to be retired and put these problems behind you and be obviously above other people you're around. You know, the people are trying to sell that. So I'm trying to encourage you to find kind of ways to look at it that are a bit less exposed to this kind of real estate, right? And on the Mamatumbo website, you can use a bunch of different things here. For example, you can literally search by mansions, empty land, right? And so one thing I haven't touched on, but I'll touch on now, is that in Nicaragua in general, money doesn't reliably get you quality. Okay, so in other countries, especially the really regulated countries, in general, when you spend more money, you're often going to get higher quality. So people tend to be in the habit of spending more money just because they tend to know that cheaper stuff is inferior quality and will break faster and all this kind of stuff. And here that's true as well, but in general, it's more flexible. Like, people here are much more likely to be like asking for, $200,000, but then accept $150,000 or $130,000, depending on their circumstance. And that can actually also be a really good thing for them. And that's why I'm saying you need to kind of get a feel for the person, because what you're looking for is a person who is selling because they're kind of cashing out on an investment, and they're not totally dependent on when, and they just want to make a profit. But they're not like they're not like freaking out about it. Because when you engage with the people who have to do something now, it's you're kind of more likely to get fucked over or tricked. So it's better to just be really patient and know that, like, if you have like access to $100,000, you can buy a farm here in Nicaragua with a house in it, or just a really nice house somewhere. It's a lot of money here. It's absolutely enough money to access property. And there's even ways to use, like, if you can get a loan from a US bank, you can even fund loans like mortgages on stuff here. I don't think they actually call them mortgages, but I know people who have been able to get loans from their banks to purchase property. So it's totally doable. I'm sure that the US banks have separate policies for their foreign investments, right? But these kind of things can be done. It's all totally possible. So I just wanted to kind of open your guys' mind a bit, because you're going to see a lot of this really high-end luxury stuff. Like, for example, right? Like, look at this. Okay. This isn't high-end luxury. It's more huge, right? This is 2.1 million asking, right? But it's 700 acres, right, of cattle grazing land. And agricultural stuff is expensive. Here, if you're trying to compete agriculturally, like make a farm and make a lot of money or something, that's one area where you should understand, like, that's what Nicaraguans do. That's like how they make money. They're big into farming and agriculture. So I would be very hesitant to try and be profitable in one of the things that there's so many people who have been doing it longer, have more money, have more of an advantage over you than you do. Like, you got to add your own twist to it, or do something, or already have customers or something if, like, you really want to compete in agriculture. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend you just jump into that kind of thing. But figured I'd show you some of this. And now, before I end the video, let's look at some, like, I guess, like, just regular houses, really. I'm going to, again, focus on things that are less than, let's say, $100,000. You'll see a lot of, like, luxury stuff when you're using these websites. And that's the thing, like, in actual Nicaragua, the houses that actually get rented don't look like, they look like this kind of stuff. What you're seeing here, this is like how the houses people actually rent look. See? A lot of this extravagant stuff you see photos of, like 95% of it just doesn't get rented out most of the time. Very few of these people are able to consistently have tenants. But there's a lot of people trying to make money off of you buying their property and then, like, quadrupling their 100K or whatever. So I prefer when it's locals who are profiting. It's better to help, like, a couple hundred locals earn $100 each than it is to make one foreigner who's rich relatively already just have more. Like, you know, it's a bit tragic. There's a lot of cool stuff. Let's look at the cheapest possible thing we can find. 44K. This is probably going to be the cheapest. These are like, so these neighborhoods, they're usually like mass produced, and they have lots and lots and lots and lots of houses that look like exactly like this. I don't know if that's one of them, but they're quite common. And I'll add one note before I leave. People have been talking about being in a gated community and that kind of thing. And look, you're no safer in a gated community. It's literally, again, I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of money being made off of people, right? And you are going to get robbed when your wealth is flaunted and you're in an area that's known to have wealth. It's inevitable. That's not true just in Nicaragua. That's how it works everywhere. I mean, like, there's even like people like in the U.S., politician just got attacked in his own house with a hammer and shit. Like, there is violence and all this kind of shit everywhere. Don't be deluded into thinking that there's anywhere in the world that you can just flaunt your wealth and there aren't going to be people around being like, man, that's really fucked up. You know, there's going to be consequences for these kind of ways of living and actions in some places. And it's true basically everywhere. So take that with a grain of salt. Because gated communities in particular, most people I speak with, they're always like, oh, we need to live in a gated community. And it's like, it doesn't matter. It does not matter that there is a gate that has a guard. Do you realize how easy it is to climb walls, how unfrequent electrical fences are actually electrified, how easy all of these things are to just navigate past if you have silence and darkness? It's very, very simple. And a lot of gated communities are actually targeted by robbers because robbers know that people inside have a sense of security. And the best people to rob are the people who feel so secure they're not paying attention. So, as far as I can tell from Nicaraguans I've known, and when people get robbed, in gated communities, you're no safer to robberies. As far as I can tell, I know people who've been robbed outside and inside of gated communities, but I can tell you that most of the robberies that I know about that other people experienced were inside gated communities or right as you get into one. So, like, they're not safer. I really don't believe they're safer. I don't perceive them as safer. Really, what a safe place is a place with a small entrance that doesn't demand much attention, that blends into the environment. No obvious cars or obvious signs of wealth. That's it. Like, that is so much safer. Even if it's near an area that's a little bit sketchy, it just doesn't demand attention. Where if you have, like, imagine you plopped one of these, like, these kind of houses, right? But you have like a big, like, American lawn, and then you have one of these kind of pools, and then you have like a fence that people can just see through and everything. Like, you're gonna get robbed. Like, absolutely, you're gonna get robbed because people can just see, and the way it looks, it's inviting. Like, they're like, yeah, they look like they don't care. Like, if we take something, like, you really want, like, people to not be able to see into the property, and that's gonna have a lot more theft deterrence than, like, if you're in a gated community or not. Because what you don't realize is if you're not in a gated community, but you're in, like, any other, like, neighborhood, there's gonna be, like, guards and stuff around. Like, it's really, like, likely that if you aren't in a gated community, but you're in any degree of wealth, there's gonna be guards. So I strongly encourage you to let go of this insistence that you have to live inside of a gated community. Because personally, I don't see that as really being better. Alright, everybody. That's it for now. If you like this video, feel free to check out my consulting. It's $20 per 30-minute session. And I'm happy to share my experiences here or talk about any kind of ideas you might have. Any kind of feedback or criticisms or anything that you think I might be able to help with. Particularly if you have some kind of project or some specific problem you're trying to crack or figure out. I love that kind of stuff, so I'd love to help you out, okay? And again, it's $20 per 30-minute session. You can go to calendly.com/Jack Dermot Pittman. and then you'll see my calendar. It'll show you the available times. You just pick it, pick the time, confirm, and then it'll charge you after you confirm. All right? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.